Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Monday Morning Musing. This is Steve Crosby. For the next few weeks, we're going to take a detailed look at a very familiar passage from a very familiar book, and that is the beautiful letter to the Ephesians. And we are going to look at particularly verses 9 and 10 of chapter 1. And I want to lay out a little bit of groundwork before we get there. I was raised in a King James environment. I use King James for my devotions. I read King James meditatively. But I also am aware that it has issues and problems. Think of it this way. Your salary depends on making the king happy. You've been hired by the king to write a translation, and your paycheck depends on it. That is going to affect how you translate things. And when you're dealing with King James, one of the things you need to remember is you're writing for a monarch, a king. It's going to have a monarchical slant and a bureaucratic slant. And I would never teach or do serious theology from King James. I would reference it, but I would compare with other things. So let's just keep that in mind, because I'm going to read these two verses to you from the King James and make a comment. So we're talking about Ephesians chapter 1. First of all, we know it's a beautiful book. The first 3 chapters are, all the wonderful things about the church, the exalted church. But I just want to read it from King James, just verses 9 and 10 of Ephesians. Having made known unto us the mystery of his will, according to his good pleasure, which he has purposed in himself, that in the dispensation of the fullness of times he might gather together in one all things in Christ, both which are in heaven and which are in earth, even in him. I want to key in on that word dispensation. I read it in other translations. Someone translates that word as administration. Someone translates that word as management. But interestingly, David Bentley Hart translates it as husbandry. And I believe David Bentley Hart comes much closer to what a Jewish or Semitic mind would think of this particular word. And that word is oikonomia. Oikonomia. Oiko is the prefix meaning household or house or home. And nomia comes from nomos, or the law, the management of the household. And in fact, in 1 Timothy, that's the way the word's translated, household. But it's interesting, when you come up a word, and there's about as many renderings of it as there are translations, you can pretty much count on that there's some uncertainty or diversity of opinion on that word. And I believe that's the case with this passage here in Ephesians. And where we're going to go in the next couple of weeks is going to mesh with the series we did on Semitic culture, because I want to unpack just this little word for a bit and weave it into a non-individualistic understanding and try to weave it into how a first century Jew might have understood that word. What kind of cultural background, what kind of baggage might somebody in the first century be bringing to that word? So that's where we're going to go for the next few weeks. I just wanted to introduce it here, and I'll see you the next time.